Good to go? Okay. Let's call the meeting to
I
order.
think so. 6, yep, 6 we've got.
Okay, perfect. Can I get approval of the minutes, January 20th, 2021? You get a motion?
I'll move that.
Sorry.
Jack, second.
Second it.
Thanks, Yvonne. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Approved? So moved. Paul, you gonna do the budget? Or is Jack doing it?
I think Jack wanted me to speak to it. Jack, are you able to put that on the screen or?
No, Allison sent it out to everybody.
Let me
Oh.
see if I could just get it up there. Hold on a second. Give me a minute.
That's why I got my readers on.
Don't we all?
too.
Let's see if I can get that. Can you see that
Yeah.
budget?
Yeah.
So, basically when we build this budget, I'm an engineer building a budget, so, so what I do is really, this is a not-for-profit LDC. And so what I really do is I build the cost side. And then, the revenue side is made up of the lines of credit from MBT and any sales that the LDC has, property sales. So I just make that match, on the revenue side. So really I'm building the cost side first and then, making the revenue side match. And on the revenue side, for this year, we've just assumed that we will get the sale done with the new parcel, the 579,000. You can see that in the revenues up about the fourth line down. You can see I've got a land sale in there for 579. So I have put that in the revenues. I think somebody's probably needs to go on mute, right? I think I'm getting some feedback maybe. And so on the cost side, on the cost side is what takes a little bit of time, and I look at what has to be done, what we have left to do, and mostly right now we're just working off of the Z182 Empire State Development Grant, and what's left to be paid on that grant, or left to be done really, is on the design and planning side, forecast is about 185,000. A lot of that some of that is actually stuff that's already been done and hasn't been paid. So I'm kind of assuming there's a good portion of that doesn't get paid after April 1st. But anyway, so that's 185. There is 202,000 outstanding on the building foundation contract, and then there is a projecting to get done is about 350,000 up top on DSA 1. That's the final grading work up there, and that's the stormwater basin as well, and any work up there for the final grading. And then I've put a number in here for Jones Chemical. It's just a number to hold. Right now, there's no negotiation on that number at this point, and that was 40,000. So number I came up with on the cost side was 777,809, and that's transferred below on the expenditures section below. So and on top of that, there's interest on the various MBT loans. I put that in there at 15,000, and then there's legal costs and insurances and things that are not paid by the grants. So those are additional expenditures, and again, we just adjust the line of credit to account for those additional expenditures. And the interest gets back, the interest on the loans gets back, it's called negative amortization. It just feeds back into the loans until such time the loans are paid. So that gets back into the, that cost is fed back into the line of credit, more or less. So that's how I built it. And that's, I think, a pretty good forecast, for the next operating year. Again, it might be a little less than, it might be somewhat less than 777,000 if depending on payments between now and April 1st. There's some payments that could come out to Elon and Tioga that could alter that a bit, but I think it's a good working number.
Okay. Anybody got any questions on Paul's budget here?
I'll defer to you, Vince,
Matt?
on this one.
Yeah, no, I mean, I went through this with Jack and everything, so, I mean, I'm comfortable with the budget, so, if everybody's okay, could I get a motion to approve the budget as presented by Paul?
Councilman Beatrice.
Second, Mary?
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay, committee updates, who's gonna jump on this?
I can start, Vin. Is Melanie with us? Yeah. Melanie.
Yep.
Yes, so we've been busy since our last meeting and have a few updates. Starting with on the agenda, I think we start with Canal Corporation. I'll kick it over to Melanie. Melanie did have a conversation with Peter Casper. Do you want to fill in the LDC on that, Melanie?
Sure. So Peter Casper is the attorney who's representing Canal Corp in this conveyance of the bulkhead parcel to the LDC. And we have had a contract out there circulating for some time, just trying to pin down the vacate date, the date that Canal Corp will be out of the space. The most recent correspondence from Canal Corp was November 2021, which is about 6 or 7 months later than we originally thought. It was supposed to be in March, I believe, March or April. The contract has not been signed yet because we're trying to work out some issues with that vacate date. And in my most recent conversation with Pete Casper, he advised that the extension to November, the reason that Canal Corp has to stay on site longer than they thought is that their new location, they were looking to build a new building. The plans have kind of fallen through or been put on the back burner due to some budget issues at the state level. So they're going to be looking for space to rent temporarily. And at that point, he mentioned that Canal Corp would be willing to consider some sort of rental payment if they had to stay past the date that they plan on vacating. So he's giving us this November date and basically saying that Canal Corp would consider paying rent. So the next question is, what we haven't gone back to him with any kind of rent structure, but Lisa and Paul and Jack and I have been talking with Vin about some figures, what we might want to suggest in our response to Canal Corp. But before we get into what that pricing might be, I think we have to really understand what the timing has to be. Because I think a couple months might work, but there will be a point that Canal Corp has to be out of the space, which includes not just the 1933 building, but also the 2 outbuildings on the site. So, we have some timing considerations, and then we can talk about, I guess, what we want to go back to them with in terms of a rent.
And so on the timing piece, the Mohawk Valley Gardens, just skipping over grid for a second, we do have some reports on grid actually, but the Mohawk Valley Garden, which I spoke to Rob, everything's still a go, and we shared with him this information that the Canal Corp, is there till at least November, and looking to get out. Now, of course, he wants to demolish the 2 westerly buildings where the Canal Corp would have some people in there, but in terms of staying through all of 2021, not a problem. There are things that have to be done. I'm looking at a timeline that we're putting together to share with Mohawk Valley Garden. We have to get the formal contract in place between the LDC and Mohawk Valley Garden. We have to get the property subdivided. There's design elements that Rob has to do on his end. And then, of course, we're designing the promenade in the area in front of the 33 building, to which we're going to submit a CFA, if there is a CFA, round this year for construction of all of that. So there's plenty to do in 2021. And Rob said that worked with his timeline. I think I'll defer to Paul, but I would say by like spring of 2022 would be about the latest that they should be there, so that if we get our grant, we'll know by December. We want to look to get construction going, by summer of 2022, and same with Rob on the new building and renovating the 33 building. So it's not too much of a big deal that they need to stay till November, and then if they needed to stay probably until early spring, I think that's okay. But we don't want to be here any longer than that.
Right,
Steve, are you here?
and just-
Steve, are you hearing yours out now? You lost there for a second. Steve DeMille.
Oh, can you?
He said he lost you, but I don't know if you can hear us.
I just wanted to add to what you said. This is Melanie. The Canal Corp was open to payment of rent if they stayed past November. So just to be clear, they weren't thinking about offering to pay rent before November. It would be after that date set forth in the contract.
And I think that's what we discussed at our last LDC meeting. So that's okay.
All right.
I think, the dangers is they keep asking and we keep extending. I mean, we definitely, I think that if beyond April 1st of 2022, they will definitely cause a problem to the site development, I think.
Right.
I mean, we're assuming, the state will have some CFA around in this summer, and we can get some more monies for the Promenade Marina area and continue work on the public side, the same time the developers are doing work. But either way, it's going to be a problem if they're still there April 1st of 2022.
So we had talked about possibly doing rent, and Jack calculated an amount, and then maybe escalating it after some time, which, Melanie, correct me if I'm wrong, but as we do that, that helps Canal Corp's case, like, hey, we got to get out of here. It's costing us money.
Yep, we want to not only put pressure on them, but give them something that they can use in their argument to find this other space. So I think we talked $2,000 a month, and then increase $2,000 a month for month number one, and then $500 after that, or would we want to make it $2,000 a month, and then maybe in April start increasing it dramatically? I don't know if 500 is sufficient. I think we have to be very clear with them that they can't stay past April 1st. It would become more of a penalty.
Would it be the rental plus liquidated damages, Melanie? I thought that was the suggestion after April 1st. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So as of April 1st, I think it would increase 500 if that works. Maybe more. I guess. We have
I'm
to
not
have.
sure if 500 is punitive enough to get them to move, right? I mean, we got to make it so they really want to go, like 10 grand or something, like a penalty as opposed to rent, just to move them out, make it worth their while. 500 is not going to get the state to move.
Yeah, that was a day though, weren't you? Wasn't that, Melanie? Like if April 1st would be liquidated damages, usually a daily rate, right?
Okay.
We could do it however you want. Yeah, we could say $500 a day. That would be 50. What is that? 15 grand.
Yeah. And I think, shouldn't it start in March? If we need them out of there in April, then.
Right.
Yeah. When are we going to take title to the land? I mean, is it clean yet, Lisa, for us to take it?
everything's ready. This is the last piece that we had to negotiate. But yeah, Melanie has all the paperwork done, ready for signature. So we just needed to resolve this issue.
But we don't need to resolve this issue to take the land, do we? I mean, I think the legislation said we could just take it, right?
Yes.
Well, this is the issue. We don't have a contract. We're trying to get the contract signed. That was one of the pieces.
In the contract.
Yeah. So Canal Corp is willing to deed over the land as soon as the contract's signed. But they need the contract signed too, because there are certain restrictions that run the land that would be contained in the deed and the other documents of conveyance that Canal Corp would be providing to us. So part of the contract is this use permit or this occupancy agreement that would permit Canal Corp to, which is why we're trying to come up with a rental amount to insert into that document.
Jack, Lomedica, are we going to charge them per foot or per square? You know, we haven't coming up with how we're going to do it. Don't you, when you release things out, you do it by square foot or something like that?
Yeah, Jack came up with a formula to come up with that $2,000 a month. So based on square footage, yes.
Lisa, if they stay beyond the November timeframe, does anybody be able to have access to the building for any future additional testing that may need to be done?
Yeah, they have said that. Now, question to Melanie, I don't know if that's in there, but they have said that we can get in there, or if VG wants to get in there, do testing measurements, et cetera, yes. There's a large piece of machinery in there that they only want to move once. They will move it if it's in the way, but if they don't have to, would prefer not to.
Great, thank you.
Right. So the 1933 building would be available. It's just the two outbuildings where they would have staff that would not be available.
Oh, and Peter Casper also mentioned that the remediation because of the flood a year ago, last October, has been completed. So all that mold remediation has been done too, just as an FYI.
You have to comply with the ABO requirements on this. Or if you're going to lease property, you got to show fair market value, or you're going to try to structure some type of continuing obligation that they have until they can relocate, and then you're just going to work out a fee.
Yeah, so they have it structured. They wanted it set up as like a use permit with LDC.
Okay.
It's not a true lease.
Yeah, no, I think you want to avoid that with the ABO.
Yeah.
Yeah, not calling it a lease, right? Yeah.
Right.
So what do you need from us? You need an agreement with the rent to go and do it? I mean, what do you need this board to do right now?
I don't know if we need an official, right? We just, I guess, an okay that we put this clause in the contract with them. Send it to them to get their sign off, and then this is the last piece. So I guess maybe a resolution to, maybe Melanie, do you want to craft that resolution?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think about, I think we have the resolution to enter into the contract already.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if we need further for the amount of the rent to be charged. I guess if that's what you're asking, maybe be an agreement that is that something that we should, $2,000 a month up until through March 2021 at $2,000 a month, and then increase to $2,000 plus $500 per day.
Do you want to get that specific? Why don't you?
Does it have to be that?
Well, yeah, because I hate to have to each time come back to the board to, I mean, you might have to go back and forth. I think the intent, right, is I think the 2,000 is probably, that's probably a good number, right? I mean, on the use fee. It's the penalty on the April 1st date that I'm not sure is, we could decide here, because I think that's going to be some back and forth with Canal Corp.
Yeah.
But I guess
Right.
it's up to you, Vin. Do you want to lock in the 2,000 as a, with the board or,
Yeah, I'm
And then-
comfortable with the 2,000 and,
Okay.
You want to give
No.
yourself some wiggle room, if it's plus or minus, or on the minus side rather, that you got the ability to agree to it.
maybe say 2,500 we want to get to.
Yeah,
Like that.
I think so. Yeah.
So,
Is there any concern about getting any less? I guess, do we want to not, I think that maybe, Paul, what you were saying, do we want to keep it just more general, giving Vin the ability to agree to whatever they negotiate?
well, I think on the use fee, I think with Steve, on the use fee, I think they were saying something like 2,000 plus or minus 500 or something like, or, but on the penalty, I think that's going to be difficult. I think there'd be some sort of penalty, but I don't know if you want to lock that. I think I was going to, seemed like it would give the attorney some flexibility to negotiate that.
Right.
I wouldn't call it a penalty. So if they go beyond March 31st of next year, you just increase the rent. I mean, you can't effectively evict them, can you?
Right. So the rent increases by percentage or?
Well, you certainly don't want, you certainly want to create an incentive for them not to stay.
Right.
So I think using the word penalty, I think has the wrong connotation.
Okay.
I think you
Premium?
want more rent.
A premium to stay?
Right.
25%.
You could write in like an escalation clause.
Mm-hmm.
If the rent, hold on, if the rent is 2,000, go in general from November to March, then April's rent is 3,000. May's rent is 4,000, 5,000, 6,000.
There you go.
And it's we let you go for a while, but then we're just going to hit you and hit you and hit you, and it's just going to escalate at $1,000 per month.
Mm-hmm.
And that could be, but I don't think we need to decide that right now, right? We don't need to decide that amount right now. We can,
Right. We could.
and I'm not sure we need anything, Vin, because we already have approval for you to sign this with them. So, we're just discussing it. I don't know if we need a formal resolution. We can certainly discuss it. I just don't know if we need a formal resolution.
Right.
All right.
So approximately 2,000.
Jack, you're muted.
Okay. I had a question on that. If we really want them out by April 1st, is that what we really want them out? Is that our drop dead date?
Yeah.
Okay, so why don't we make February their drop dead date? That way we give them a month to, come March, they're going to be, they'd be at panic mode by then. If you give them a drop dead date of the day we want them really out, they might try to play another couple months on us.
Yeah, that's what I was maybe thinking March 1st, actually.
Yeah, or the last day of February, you know what I mean? You got to be out, and then we really turn the nut there. Because if you give them that last day, it seems like that's all they do is drag their feet on getting out of there. If we give them a drop dead date the day we actually need to be in there, I don't have all the, I just don't know if they're really going to take it seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think what you're saying is rent starting November is approximately 2,000 plus or minus some wiggle room for Vin. Then come March 1st, it'll start to escalate at some additional.
A rental increase at some
Right.
additional amount.
Yep.
Yeah, maybe that 1 month of extra pain might, kick them in the ass a little.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So rent wouldn't start till November?
Correct.
I think, well, I don't.
Or December?
I think it's December. I think that they plan to be out end of November 2021.
Right. December 1.
Okay, so between now and then, there's no cost to them?
Correct.
That's right.
Okay, all right. And obviously, you're gonna get, they're gonna, if they're gonna occupy, they're gonna insure, they're gonna take care of utilities, all that stuff. They bear all those obligations.
That's correct, right, Mel?
So I'll have to go back and look about exactly how the occupancy agreement is worded, but yes, that would be the understanding. Although we would have to have insurance on the property once we close because the LDC would be the owner.
Yeah, no, you're gonna need property insurance, but in terms of them, insuring their contents and also liability policy that covers the LDC and the IDA and whoever else, your lender.
Mm.
And they said that they wanted electricity from, because the main electricity feed is in the 33 building. And they had asked us at some point if we could leave that on so that they could use it in those two outbuildings.
As long as they pay for it.
Exactly, that's my point.
And you need to have the reasonable access so you can do whatever
Yes,
engineering work and testing that you need to do.
correct.
Right.
Because I don't think there's any measurements of that building, so Rob's going to need that.
Well, I'm comfortable moving forward that way. I think, Jack, that's a great idea. Let's do February 28th or March 1st, whichever works in the agreement, and see if we can get this property transferred.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
All right.
Next, National Grid.
Yep. Let's see. Let me just do this. I'm gonna share my screen. Maybe if I could find where you guys just went. Oh, here you are. Been on a Zoom call all day. All right. Can anybody see my screen?
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, geez, you guys are in the way here. Let me move you over here. Okay. So I'm going to combine Jones Chemical with this conversation as well. And because I know there's some new members on the board, this image is actually from National Grid's. There's a site that they have online for their cleanup activities. Of course, the harbor's here, the 33 building here. This triangle piece of property is the open area of water that they still need to retain. They're going to put the dredge spoils from the river dredging project, which is this blue line approximately here. Paul and I have had a conversation with, this is, says Monarch, it's now Jones Chemical, this property here. All of these buildings are gone currently. I can go to an existing aerial photograph if anybody needs, but these buildings are gone. Jones Chemical is, I'm going to start here because it feeds into this green area. Jones Chemical it has an ongoing groundwater monitoring system that is going to be there probably in perpetuity. If you've been out there, there's a couple white trailers in the middle, and they have this sort of elaborate system that all comes into that trailer. And I'm not in it. Paul can explain it if anybody wants. I'm not an engineer. We spoke to them, and they're interested in selling. And of course, this the New York Tar Emulsions, the LDC is the proud owner of this property as well. We're interested in this property because of parking primarily. So we had Jones Chemical sent us their site plans where they have some of their wells and monitoring systems on the ground, et cetera. So we took a look at that, and Paul's engineer did a very quick sort of capacity analysis of parking here. And it looks like, I counted up those spaces, Paul, it was about 350 spaces of parking that we could actually fit here. So that's of interest, given its proximity to the harbor. And you remember we went over the promenade design. And so we have a sort of pedestrian gateway, if you will, to the promenade at this point, at this corner of the harbor. So it'd be real nice to have parking nearby. It would certainly help the redevelopment of this property here too by Mohawk Valley Gardens. So we're going to talk to Tim is his name from Jones Chemical, share the site plan and make sure we're not assuming something that can't be done given the site management requirements with DEC, and then get a name of their attorney so that we could start negotiations of acquiring that property. Anything more on that, Paul or Melanie, that I missed?
No, there's all pipe, it basically has to be a parking lot because it would be very difficult, the site management plan, and then it's a pump and treat type system or vacuum extraction it might be, but it basically, all those pipes are coming to a header at a trailer. And so none of those pipes or that trailer can move. So we're kind of working around that, but there's, so a parking lot works, but
Right here.
not a whole lot of other options, that you could do with that property.
Here's the image of that. So, it's just roughly laid out, but this green area in the middle, that's where those trailers are that we can't move. And there's some old foundations and things that are still here. So when we do the CFA request to do the promenade construction, we'll add some dollar ask in here to build out this parking lot, and including getting rid of anything that's in our way.
Lisa,
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, I had a question on that.
Yeah.
Just north of it, where the disposal areas, is that going to be a parking lot too, or the red triangle?
This one?
Yeah.
No, according to our master plan, and this is going to be some time out. We're going to, there's not a lot that we're going to be able to put in here because they're putting contaminated spoils in here, and then they'll be capping it, and it has to set for a year, et cetera. Once it's capped, we're looking at sort of parking on the edge, yes, but more of an amphitheater to look down into the harbor. So
Okay.
it is angled.
It wasn't that where we were thinking about putting the boat launch somewhere in there as well?
Yeah, yeah.
So there's going to need parking to put their trailers and their boat trailers.
And we're going to have parking here on this property because this is also contaminated and we can't really do anything else with it anyway.
So we'll have a lot of parking.
That boat launch would be right across too, from that Monarch site, Jack. So
okay,
it'll be all right there. And remember, we want to try to find enough space to build a number of multi-use fields, and
right,
in accordance with the master plan there. So.
So on that notion, our attention turned to this green area, which is a water gas plant, and now this is capped and mounted with a chain link fence all the way around. And there is, I think, a very elaborate groundwater treatment system here. So if it rains, and we've been talking to National Grid about this whole property. So here's what we call the Parthenon, right? And we have the fields that we want to build, the active fields here. There, you can't see it underneath this label, is their substation, which they're relocating over to this area. And it's quite big. They're doubling the size of it. And they're going through the city, the approvals process now. So Grid, who we've been talking to all along, we really want them more of a partner with the LDC to understand the long-term vision of really what we want on both of these properties. And so we're sort of going to maybe try to chip away at it with this, the water gas plant property, which are three make up this one, 3 tax parcels. And so we contacted them, and Paul, maybe you can explain where they are with DEC.
Yeah, well, basically we asked about if putting a field there, and they didn't say no. We said, can we put some multi-use fields up on top? They just said they were negotiating they're not getting DEC's not happy with some of the recovery, and they need to make some enhancements on the groundwater side. So they have a slurry wall and I think a groundwater pump and treat type of thing. And they need to do some adjustments to that. So what they really were telling us, I think, Lisa, was that it sounded to me like what we call this water gas plant parcel was gonna probably the market, for a time until they get that straightened out. So I think that, they didn't say no to. In fact, they offered. They don't mind us exploring that use for CAD files. They offered information on their, locations of their pump and treat system and some of the operation and maintenance access that they need. And they told us who to contact to get that. So they did, I think it was a step in the right direction as far as partnering with them and getting the information we need,
Yeah.
So.
So we're going to continue to work with them. We're just in the process of transferring these files. Once we get to the CAD files, we'll see, we can get the contours. We'll be able to see a little bit easier what we may be able to do here. And we'll continue to work with them.
Lisa, this is Melanie. To
Mhm.
add to that, I did hear back from their counsel, who said they were having an internal meeting to discuss the property and the status of the substation, and he would just keep me posted. So I can let the group know when we hear back on that.
Okay. All right. Let's see, where am I? My agenda. So that's Canal Corp Grid, Mohawk Valley Garden, Jones Chemical. I guess we could stay with the property discussion, and I think that we talked about this last time, but let me share again. So this is maybe you haven't seen this. We had a call, internal team call, and Brian joined us for that. So I know Brian's seen this. This is our elaborate subdivision plan for Jack and Brian joined us to discuss this for the DSA 1 property. So this green area is where the Judge Spoils area is. Here's the 1917 building. Can everybody see my screen okay? The Arctic ice is this yellow square, which has now been demolished. Paul showed us pictures last time. This was the property that Visions, almost, these are the two parcels that Visions did own, and now the LDC owns. So when we say new parcel, we're creating this parcel here, and I can zoom in. We're creating this 3.16 acre parcel. This building's gone. And this is what Paul was showing in your budget, reflecting selling this to Visions, I forget the number. 579.
Yep.
And then there's this little sliver here that Delmonico's, which is adjacent, has expressed interest in adding to their parking lot. And Jack and Brian have been, or Jack, you spoke to John Waite's people a while ago. They are still interested in, and Jack was interpolating a value of this property from the assessment of DSA 1, and the size of this, interpolating from an adjacent assessment, is about $10,000. This property over here is actually was some consideration from the Army Corps in terms of permitting, which we received. This might remain a property, right, Paul, or we might combine that with the DSA property, or we're gonna carve this out as lot 5, right?
Well, right now it's considered a preservation area for wetlands, but I think I mentioned last time that we're in a good position right now, and I got to get this. I have to review the final package for Steve Eckler, but it looks like the way it's going, that could actually become developable now at some point. So it could be that lot could become for sale as well.
Okay.
It could go with the DSA 1 or whatever, the rest of the larger parcel. But right now it was envisioned as because initial conversations with Corps of Engineers had that being preserved as the highest and best land on site. So.
And then so now our Wers Ave Road, of course, isn't shown here, but it's coming in. This lot 4 will largely be, a lot of this is going to be filled, right? So that's what we're working on now. And much of this property here is going to be the roundabout itself. Will consume a lot of this area. And then also we'll have a sight line sort of restriction from a new hotel would kind of kitty corner, if you will, through here. And what part of the agreement was to preserve lines of sight out to the harbor.
I wouldn't. Yeah, I think the main thing, though, it's not impacting us, this line of sight restriction.
Yeah.
Well, between the roundabout and it's also one other thing, Lisa, too, is the stormwater basin. Yeah. but when we put the roundabout and stormwater basin, we didn't have another structure that was blocking, the vision. So I think we're not losing anything anymore with with that idea.
This is just the first time I think everybody's seen the kind of the final lot layout, if you will, of what we're looking at. So what we're doing now is working with Brian's office and Kate Hartnett to do a subdivision of these properties. And Melanie and I had gotten all the information from Brian in terms of the application forms and what have you. And Melanie's now coordinating with Kate a little bit on this as well. So that's exciting. We're moving forward. I'm not sure the timeline of this yet. It might be a couple months by the time we get on the planning board agenda. So Vin will probably have to get some of your signatures and things of this nature.
Great.
I'll be talking to Kate on the 23rd. We have a call scheduled. So Brian, we may need you on the call too, if Brian's on here.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, Lisa? Paul?
Just looking at my notes, I don't think I have anything more.
Well, like I said, I think like I said, the wetland permit's very good news. And then I'm writing a periodic review report for the DEC. The DEC required that for DSA 1. I'm currently writing that. The DEC at some point, when we sell that property, is going to need to do a change of use approval, and it has to go from commercial to restricted residential. We need the designation as a restricted residential, which allows commercial on the first floor and residential on the second floor. So along with the wetland approval, that's the other thing. We got to get the DEC approval for that change of use. So we're working through that, as well for DSA 1.
Great. Anybody got any new business or old business they want to discuss?
Can I ask a question since I'm new on the board here? I just a general question. Regarding the day-to-day, daily, and long-term operation and maintenance of all the common areas that will be developed over this long haul, what entity will be responsible for that? And then how is that anticipated to be funded? Especially for the long-term big ticket items.
Yeah, that's a real excellent question. The LDC, right now we're kind of leaning on the city to help with the landscape areas that are there right now. And there, maybe not as much as we'd like, but they have been. At some point, I think that at least in the interim, to hopefully have enough revenues to take care of that. At some point, when the promenade and these other new landscape areas and the public areas come on the line, I think it would, shift to the LDC at some point for some time until, I guess when the LDC is done its job, I guess it goes back to the city again. But I think there's, we've talked about a marina operator contract and that kind of thing. I know the business owners in the community want to really make this a showcase, this part of North Utica and the harbor area. So I know that Rob Ash has met with Andy Patel and Sal Baruso and who was the Don Medico's person? John Wade. They've met all four of them about kind of agreement to do, to as far as upkeep and keeping the area, as private owners trying to keep everything, neat and tidy. And so I don't know if there's an answer yet exactly. I think it's a course that we need to chart out with the LDC and see how we want to handle that. But I think it is an important, it's something that this board really needs to, tackle at some point.
Okay, thanks, Paul.
Yeah.
Okay, well, if
Okay.
there's nothing new, can I get a motion to adjourn?
Councilman Beatrice.
Second?
I'll do that.
Thanks, Jack. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Thanks, everybody. Good meeting. Thanks for all the updates.
See you in a
Stay safe out there.
Yeah, I do. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, bye-bye.